So the Apothecary has a similar stat line to a lot of the other heroes. 5 wounds, 4 attacks, so he is pretty good in combat. He's not just a medic, he is pretty much as strong as the others. He has 4 sword, frag, crack and psych out grenades. So he can have falchions, so we're going to cover that now. So Nemesis Falchion is AP -2 damage D3. So it's like a slightly worse Nemesis 4 sword, but if you have 2 of them you get an extra attack, so that's where the advantage of the Falchion comes in. He has all the basic abilities, so Unleash on No Fear, etc. He has a 5% model save. He can cast 1 psychic power a turn, deny 1 and nose 2, including Smite. And he has his, obviously, Nathakium, so he can just do the standard. If you're in 3 inches, he can give back D3 lost wounds, or on a 4+ he can return a slain model, which is very useful in Grey Knight armies. Obviously, you've got a very elite army with not many wounds, so bringing people back is very useful. Giving people wounds back is very useful. He's 90 points as well, so actually he's pretty cheap, because I mean 90 points, you think he has actually got 5 wounds and 4 attacks, so it's not like he's, and a 5% model save, so it's not like he's easy to kill really. So for 90 points, I think he's well worth it actually. I'd definitely have an Apothecary in your army if you've got a unit that's worth it. So I've got 5 Terminators in my army, but they're not really like the head of my army. They're not really the main thing, and I'm planning to replace them potentially with another Dread Knight anyway. But if you've got Terminators that are a main part of your army, especially if you've got your leader in there, having an Apothecary in there is definitely a pretty good choice, I think. You got the Brotherhood Ancient, same stat line but has 3 attacks, not 4. He comes with a Stormbolter, frag, crack grenades, psychic grenades, so he doesn't actually come with a combat unit, weapon, but he can change the Stormbolter for a Falchion if you prefer the combat ability, which I probably would. That's where your Terminators are headed anyway. Has all the normal abilities, 5+ model save, and he has the normal kind of psychic allowances, but the main rule is a Sacred Banner. So friendly Grey Knight units within 6 inches of any Sacred Banners add 1 to their leadership characteristic. In addition, models from friendly Grey Knights infantry units that are within 6 inches of any Sacred Banners can make 1 additional attack that phase. So that's the main one. The leadership's nice, +1 leadership, it's not a bad thing. You don't want Grey Knights to be running off the morale phase, you haven't got a lot of them as it is. But the better one is the +1 attack. Really nice. Obviously making your basic Terminators, what were they? Were they 2 attacks based? Yeah, making your basic Terminators 3 attacks with the weapons they've got, but potentially 4 as well if you've got Falchions. They can really start, you know, taking some, really start dealing out some punishment. So he's 140 points, so everything's free again, but 140 points is quite a lot, so you've got to think about that, because that basically makes him one of your HQs. He is in the elite section, which means as well, if you're on battalion, you still have to take 2 other HQs. So, you know, points starting to pile up. So, again, like the Apothecary, I think if you've got like a Paladin unit or something to put him in, someone who's really going to take advantage of that, go for it, especially as Paladins, as we're about to see, have 4 attacks with the banner, 5 if they have a Falchion, pair of Falchions. So he's cool, but you've got to have that unit you really want to give him to. There's no point just having him to help out a strike squad or something. It's just not going to do enough. Even basic Terminators I wouldn't probably take him for. I'd only probably take him for Paladins. So speaking of which, we're on to Paladins. So they're the same as a Terminator, but they have 3 attacks and 3 wounds, which does make them extremely durable and give them a lot of output at a base level. You only have to have 3, which is quite cool as well. So if you've got a nasty Grandmaster, an Apothecary, and a Banner, I know that's a lot of HQs or characters, but you can have 3 of those, 3 Paladins, and put them in a Stormraven, I think. Maybe the Stormraven can only carry 10, but you know you get my point. Put them in a Land Raid or whatever. So it's quite cool. You don't have to have loads of them. You have an additional 7 Paladins, so you can have 10 of them, which would be insane. They have Nemesis 4 swords, Stormbolters, frag, crack, and psych out grenades. So we covered all of that. Obviously they can have whatever they like, as you might imagine. The only difference is for every 5 models they can have a heavy weapon. Sorry, 2 heavy weapons. So if there's 10 of them, they can have 4, but the bigger point is if you have 5, you can have 2 heavy weapons, which is pretty cool. All the normal abilities, 5+ invulnerable saves, combat squads. The unit can manifest one psychic power, deny one, they know smite on one other power, they take D3 more wounds for periling. The paladins are 53 points each, but again, pretty much that's not bad, because again, you've got to remember their equipment is basically going to be free, more or less. So 5 of them would be, well, let's say you took 3 of those to be in that elite squad I was just talking about. You're looking at about 159 points. You're going to take some weapons, so let's make it 175 points. It's not crazy. 175 points for 3 of them. I know they're only toughness 4, but 2 plus save, 5 plus vulnerable, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, and they'll have 4 attacks because of the banner as well. They'll have the medic, the apothecary bringing them back. They'll have the grandmaster letting them reroll 1s, and you give one of these guys probably falchions, because that's a lot. Probably give 2 of these guys falchions because that's a lot of attacks, and then give your grandmaster and one of these guys demon hammer so you can deal with the bigger things. And then the apothecary and brotherhood ancient can just help with a few more attacks. That could be a powerful unit and not insanely expensive. I'd say with the transport it would probably be about 800 points, which I know is a lot of points, but when you think you've got 3 paladins, an apothecary, a brotherhood banner, a grandmaster and a land raider, for 800 points you think it's not too bad. All your HQs are taken care of, so you don't have to worry about that, and they would beat some face, those guys together, so potentially worth looking at. But yeah, I think paladins are worth their points. They're pretty good. You've then got the paladin ancient. He's basically a paladin, but he has he's a character, so he has 1 extra attack and he has 2 extra wounds. There's 5 wounds. Comes with a stormbolt of frag and crack grenades and psychic grenades. Basically, he gets the better banner, so he has the sacred banner. So you'd have a paladin ancient rather than the normal ancient, and again it's +1 leadership and +1 attack. So you can potentially take him, and he is, how much more is he? So he's only 12 points more, and to be fair, you get a lot more for him. So again, might as well take him, so he blends in with the paladins, and like armor wise and things like that. And like I say, for 12 points, he's well worth it anyway. So there you go. So paladin ancient. Purifiers. So they've got a general Space Marine stat line. Nothing special about the stat line. You have a Knight of the Flame, which is a ridiculously cool name. And for purifiers, you can have an additional 5, so you can up to 10. They have a Force Sword, Stormbolter, and all the grenades. They replace their weapons, any of them replace weapons, but for every 5 models, again, you can have 2 purifiers with a shooting weapon, like a Psy Cannon Incinerator, so that's quite cool. So small units of these can actually pack quite a bit of firepower as well as quite a bit of combat, and 10 of them would be quite good. So considering they can't deep strike, but 10 of them could go in a Storm Raven, then jump out and unleash all those Stormbolters and 4 heavy weapons. Could do quite a lot of damage, and you can countercharge them if you want, but they're pretty good. They have combat squads. Purifying Flame is their rule. When this unit manifests the smite power, it has a range 3 inches, but inflicts D6 more wounds. So that's really good, because you've got a whole squad doing it rather than just Crow. So until you kill that entire squad, you've got to worry about D6 more wound smites. So yeah, these guys in a Land Raider or a Storm Raven, so it's going to get them up the board quick, because they can't teleport, and get in someone's face quick, and then you can unleash a lot of firepower, Stormbolters and heavy weapons, and unleash a D6 wound smite. And hopefully then charge if you're allowed as well. That's pretty great. So purifiers are pretty good. The only negative with the purifiers is that 1 attack base. So the 26 points, so the 10 of them with their equipment, you're looking at about 300 points. But that is what you paid. Well, no, it's probably less than you paid before, to be fair. And they've got some cool rules. The only reason I would potentially not take them is just that 1 attack. Considering you need to buy an expensive transport for them, not having that 2nd attack in combat's a little painful. So obviously, I mean, if you don't mind modelling them though, the falchions are free, so I suppose you could give 2 heavy weapons, give a demon hammer to the sergeant just so you've got one, and then have 7 falchions, and all of a sudden then you're still doing D3 wounds each, but you've got 14 attacks with your base guys, then the demon hammer, and then the 2 other guys. So I suppose if you look at it like that, that could work out quite well for them. So then you've got a couple of dreadnoughts. You've got the standard dreadnought and the venerable dreadnoughts, then the elites category. They're basically exactly the same stat line, which apart from the weapon skill, ballistic skills, 3+ on Dreadnought, 2+ on the Venerable Dreadnought, Strength 6, Toughness 7, 8 wounds, 4 attacks, leash of 8, 3+ save. They both come with Assault Cannon, Stormbolter, and Dreadnought combat weapon. The model replaces Assault Cannon with something from the Dreadnought heavy weapons list. You can replace this combat weapon with the Stormbolter with a missile launcher, so you only have the option of a missile launcher on the other arm, so you're probably best off keeping the combat weapon. You can swap the Stormbolter with the Heavy Flamer. Has Demon Hunter's Rites of Banishment, explodes, smoke launchers, and you can attempt to cast and deny 1 psychic power, no smite, and 1 other. Going through the weapons, the Assault Cannon's Heavy 6, Strength 6, AP -1, Damage 1. Heavy Flamers, 8 inches, Heavy D6, Strength 5, AP -1, Damage 1, but it also hits. The missile launcher is Frag, Heavy D6, Strength 4, AP dash, Damage 1, Crap Missile, Heavy 1, Strength 8, AP -2, D6 damage. So you've got to decide what you're going to do. I mean, the missile launcher I really wouldn't take, because you probably want the combat fist to get in combat, but also the missile launcher will probably cost you points, and on top of that, it's got a 40-inch range where the Heavy Flame is 8 inches and the Assault Cannon is 24, so everything else is kind of shorter ranged, so you wouldn't necessarily be in range with your other stuff, so I definitely recommend perhaps the Assault Cannon and the combat weapon. Works quite well with what the Grey Knights can do. It says the Dreadnought close combat weapons. So it can have multi-melter, heavy plasma cannon, or twin last cannon. So I'd probably recommend twin last cannon in the fist, so it can keep up with the rest of the army, fight in combat, but also the twin last cannon's good because Grey Knights don't exhibit a ton of heavy firepower. They've got a lot of Strength 5, Strength 6, Strength 7, not a lot of Strength 8, Strength 9, Strength 10. So having a couple of last cannon shots a turn wouldn't be too bad. The Venerable Dreadnought's the same in every way, except for he has Unyielding Ancient, which is roll d6, each time this model loses a wound on a 6, it's ignored. And the Dreadnought base is 87 points, the Venerable Dreadnought is 110. So you're paying 23 points. It's quite a lot, 23 points for basically on a 6 you ignore damage, because you've only got 8 wounds. If you had 15, the amount of times you might roll a 6, you've got a lot of chances. But 8 wounds, you should only averagely roll 1 1/3 6s in that time. So for 23 points, it's quite expensive, because you can probably equip the Dreadnought for around that many points. Well, you can buy the last cannon for those points. The last cannon's kind of free. You are then paying 40 points for the combat weapon, but still. But yes, the Dreadnought's about 150, 160. The Venerable's about 190. So pick how you will, but I personally don't think the Venerable's worth it. Servitors are just like Servitors in any other army. If you want to take them, they're an elite choice. So we're on to the Interceptors now. This is something, as I was saying earlier, with my second Brotherhood company, I've got quite a lot of, which is Interceptors in the fast attack. I think they're very cool models, very cool idea, but I actually think also, in my own kind of mind, this is how the Grey Knights would fight. Almost all of them would have personal teleportage. They wouldn't make a big thing about it. It would just be built into their jump pack, into their power plant on their power armor. And so they'd all kind of work like this. But anyway, I don't think they're really cool. Movement 12 inches. Apart from that, they've got the North Space Marine stat line. So they are jump infantry, but they do keep the teleport shunt, which I'll go through. There's 1 Justicar and 4 Interceptors. You can have an additional 5, each armed with their 4 swords, Stormbolter, Frag, Crack, and Psych Out grenades. They can do the normal equipment swapping, so combat weapons, whatever you want, and for every 5 models, 1 guy can have a heavy weapon. All the normal abilities, combat squads, personal teleporters. So this unit can move across the terrain as if they were not there. So that's really cool. So it's 12 inches, but also you ignore terrain. In addition, once per battle, instead of moving this unit normally in the movement phase, you can choose for them to take a teleport shunt. At the end of the movement phase, remove all models and set them up within 9 inches of enemy models. So the great thing with teleport shunt now is that there's no scattering, there's no you can't charge or any other like things that were in the previous edition. Now it's just you land within 9 inches and you can do what you want. So there's really good flexibility that you can do that. They also have teleport strikes, so they can actually deep strike. So the great thing is you can, if you want, deep strike and then move around, or deep strike then shunt the next turn, or you can start on the board, shunt up the table. You know, you have so much flexibility there to where you want to be on the battlefield. I think they're really useful. They can attempt to manifest 1 psychic power, deny 1, they know 1 and smite, and D3 wounds from Perils of the Warp. So the intercept's also gone down in points, which is another good reason to have them. They're 23 points, again their stuff's mostly free. They used to be I think 25, so it's not a massive saving, but over the squad it's 20 points per squad. I got 2 of them, so it saved me 40 points, which is no bad thing. I just love the manoeuvrability. They've still only got 1 attack, they've still only got the shooting weapons they had before, so although they'll do a decent amount of damage, they won't, you know, cripple you, but it's just, the manoeuvrability is really appealing. If you're playing Maelstrom, you can zip around the objectives. If you're playing Tunnel War, you can use them to get into good positions surrounding the enemy, especially, like I said, with my Dread Knights, also, you know, deep striking, not teleporting anymore, but deep striking means I've got a really manoeuvrable army, so I definitely recommend Interceptors. You've also got the Purgation Squad, so this is a heavy support now, so there's only 1 fast attack in the whole army, so no problem worrying about having too many choices there. Again, normal Space Marine stat line, you have a Sergeant and 4 Purgators, you can have an additional 5, they come with a 4-sword Stormbolt, a Frag, Crack and Psych Out grenades, but they can have the normal melee weapon options, but up to 4 of them may replace their 4-sword and Stormbolt with an item from the special weapons list. They can attempt to manifest and deny 1 psychic power, they know 1 and smite. So the only negative with the Purgation Squad is that, for me, is that they don't have any special rule anymore. So their Astral Aim is now a psychic power, I believe, but we'll check that later. I believe it's a psychic power, so they're basically just a Devastator squad now. There's nothing special about them, which is a little bit of a shame, really. I mean, they're only 19 points, but then you've got to give them a weapon. So say you gave them all Psy Cannons, 14 points, so they would be 33 points. So they're 33 points a guy, and when you're shooting back at them, they're just a Space Marine. So you kill them just as easy as a Space Marine. They're no more maneuverable, unlike the Interceptors. They haven't got better armor, unlike the Terminators. They're not better in combat. They're just a Space Marine with a weapon. And I think that makes them a little expensive, a little slow, just not that good. Especially as the Psy Cannons, I believe, are still reasonably short-ranged. Yeah, 24 inches. So, yeah, I just don't rate them. I really don't rate Purgation Squads. I'm sure there's a combo you can get where they jump out of Razorback, and if you give them a certain hero, they're re-rolling wounds with their incinerators, so all of a sudden you're hitting automatically re-rolling wounds. I'm sure there are ways you can bring them to the army, but just as a base idea, I think they are not that good. I think they're too expensive for what is just a Devastator Marine with a solid weapon. It's like the Psy Cannons are horrendous. Either they're good, absolutely they're good, but they're not amazing. So yeah, they're a little bit of a disappointment, really. I'd love to see them keep Astral Aim, because if you're playing 30 odd points for a basic Marine with a normal-ish gun, but then you said, but they can shoot at anyone, anywhere on the board, but also they ignore cover, which obviously is really important now with the +1 to your armor save. All of a sudden you'd be thinking, oh, okay, yeah, now I can see why they're being used. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. I just think they're a bit underwhelming, unfortunately, but maybe it's just me. So we've got the Nemesis Dread Knights. So they are a big hit from the previous edition, and they still should be in this edition. I'll go through them with you now, but I think they're pretty good. Their wounds go down the same as the Grandmaster Dread Knight, so 7, 12, 4, 6, 1, 3, movement 8, 7, 6, ballistical 3, 4, 5, attacks 4, 3, 2. The only reason it's not quite as good is obviously on the final one, 1 to 3 wounds, their ballistical is 5+, and their attacks are 2, whereas the Grandmaster was still 4 and 3. So obviously on their low wounds they do become a little ineffective, but then that's true with any vehicle now. Weapon skills 3+, so they always keep that. So again, if they're on low wounds but they get in combat, it doesn't really matter. Strength, toughness 6, 12 wounds, leadership 8, and a 2+ save. So toughness 6 is good, but obviously you are going to be wounded a lot. There's going to be a lot wounding on 5s now, so you just be aware of that when using Dread Knights. Lots of stuff's going to be wounding on 5s. They come with 2 Dread Fists, so we've been through all the weapons. The weapons are exactly the same as the Grandmasters. So again, I think we generally, well, I generally said, whether you guys agree or not, it's completely different. Heavy Psy Cannon and 1 other weapon, because the Psy Cannon's the best. And combat-wise, take the Great Hammer. I think was the general consensus. So probably the same for these guys. They have a Dread Knight teleporter, so they can teleport down as well. 5+ invulnerable save. Again, always get these guys Sanctuary, so you basically have a 4+ invuln most turns. Really useful. And then just probably Smite. Apart from that, they can cast 1 psychic power in each phase, attempt to deny 1, and they know 1 and Smite. Let's have a look. They are 130 points, but obviously you've got to add a lot of points to that. Dread Knight teleport is 10 points, that's 140. The Great Hammer is only 15 points actually, it's 155. And the 2 weapons, 155. Heavy Psy Cannon, 185. And then let's say we had the Heavy Incinerator. So you're looking about 200 points for these guys, which is actually really good. I know that they're losing movement, ballistical, etc., which they didn't before. And like I said, the toughness 6, those 5 to wounds going to hurt you a little bit, but you've still got 2+ save, you've still got a 5+ vulnerable, which like I say, will become 4+ quite a lot. You can teleport, you have 12 wounds, which is a lot, and you have gone down about 35 points, I think it is, for the same output than previously. So 35 points is, you know, a decent chunk. Again, I've got 2 in my army, looking at adding a third, so I've now saved 100 points on what I had before, which half pays for the third one, because I did have 2,000 points, so he is being added to 2,000 points, so I've effectively got half of a free Dread Knight. So yeah, I still think well worth taking. They're still pretty brilliant. Whether you take 1, you take 3, however you want to do it. But like I say, I think the tactic of having the 2 Dread Knights and then the Grandmaster in the middle, deep strike together, obviously that amount of firepower should hose whatever unit you're firing at, and then try and get a Sanctuary on them. All those 3 smites is quite good, but obviously the main thing is he's giving them reroll 1s. So that turn you come down, when you're hitting on 3s and he's hitting on 2s, he's re-rolling all his misses and they're re-rolling half their misses. So that's pretty brutal. That can be pretty brutal. So Grandmaster and a couple of those could be pretty nasty. You should see that on the channel at some point in the future. So the next thing to move on to is Land Raiders. There's 3 types, but we'll skip through because obviously once I've done one, it's pretty easy to talk you through the other 2. So the first Land Raider, remaining wounds go down 9 to 16, 5 to 8, 1 to 4, movement 10, 5, 3. So at the end it barely can move, which is something to keep in mind. Ballistical 3, 4, 5, attacks 6, d6, 1. So the attacks we don't care about, movement and ballistical though we do. Weapon skill 6+, strength 8, toughness 8 and 16 wounds, and a 2+ save makes it horribly hard to bring down, so that's really good. Smoke launchers, explodes, it has power of the machine spirit, so it does not suffer the penalty of hit rolls for moving and firing heavy weapons, which is brilliant. It can take 10 Grey Knight infantry models, Terminators take up 2 spots, so you can have 5 Terminators in there, so you couldn't quite fit in that unit I was looking at, with the banner, the 3 paladins and the apothecary and a commander, because the apothecary and the paladin are in Terminator armor. Potentially if you had the apothecary and the paladins in Terminator armor, which they have to be, but then had your leader and the Brotherhood banner in power armor, you could just about squeeze them in. So if you are looking at Land Raider, but you could also buy them a Crusader, which we'll come across in a minute. They can have all their normal options: multi-melters, storm bolters, heavy bolters, last cannons, hunter killers, all the normal stuff. And no on hunter killers, I think they're so worth it nowadays. They have 48-inch range, strength 8, AP -2, d6 damage. It is fired once per battle still, but if you actually look at the points cost for it, it's 6 points. You know, if you have 3 vehicles, it's 18 points. 3 more missiles fired first turn, 3 more chances to finish off that vehicle first turn. Like, you know, if the other team's, you're fighting Tau and they've got a Storm Surge, you know, 20 wounds, that just might be the difference. You know, your Dread Knights drop down, your Interceptors drop down, just all the firepower of the Storm Surge, and it's got 7 wounds left, and then you've got 3 hunter killers. Might just be the difference, you never know. So well worth potentially. You've then got the Redeemer and the Crusader. The standard difference is Hurricane Bolters, which are now actually a lot better, especially at close range. You're getting so many shots. That can carry 16 models, so that's pretty good. The Redeemer can also carry 12, so that's a bit better. The Flame Strike Cannon is quite nasty as well. It's still only an 8-inch range, which is a bit disappointing. I'd like to have seen 12, but it's heavy d6. It is strength 6, AP -2, damage 2 with auto hits, and the fact that obviously you've got 2 of them, so you've got heavy 2d6 effectively, which makes it that much more reliable, is pretty nasty. So considering that's got a 12 capacity, if you do want all your guys in Terminators, that would fit that kind of kill squad in it. So that's not too bad. Land Raiders. So the Land Raiders 239, the Crusader and the Redeemer, because they both are a bit better technically because of the transport capacity, although the last cannons are probably the best weapons. 240 force, but it's 5 points, so they're all effectively the same amount. By the time you've kitted them out, though, you're probably looking more like 350. Assault cannons are 35, Flamestorm cannons are 30, Twin Last cannons are 50. So by the time you've taught them out, you're looking at probably like 350. But well worth it if you've got a good enough unit you want to protect, and potentially gives you a bit more of that, like say, strength 9 firepower with those last cannons, strength 8 Morty Mowers. Gives you that little bit of firepower which perhaps you're missing with Grey Knights, so that's quite useful as well. A couple of dedicated transports, Razorbacks and Rhinos. I'm not going to go through them, everyone kind of knows what they do. Very standard stuff. Razorbacks are still probably the king option because again they give you that firepower. You can still fit 6 Grey Knights in them, so but smaller squads aren't an issue for Grey Knights, obviously. So yeah, you know, that's where you maybe would put your Purgation squad if you got it, but more importantly, where you might put those Purifiers, because they can have 2 heavy weapons. So 6 Purifiers in a Razorback, 2 with heavy weapons, 4 with combat weapons, and it can just rock up to an objective. Razorback shoots, unit shoots, someone countercharges you, you've still got 6 Purifiers in the unit. It's not like it's a soft unit to charge. So I think that's something that could definitely happen. So actually I'll just quickly point that up. Razorback 65, so let's give it Assault Cannon. Yeah, about 80 something points each, 86 points, that's pretty good for me. I'd be happy with that. So that's an option there. Got 3 flyers, so go through them now. You've got Storm Hawk, Storm Talon and the Storm Raven. And I think that's it then, yeah. So that's then the army done. Obviously we're going to go through the relics and psychic powers and things like that as well, though, just to finish the video off. So the Storm Hawk is toughness 7 with 10 wounds and a 3-up save. It can have a lot of weapons, but I'll go through kind of the more unique ones. The Icarus Storm Cannon is 48 inches, heavy 3, strength 7, AP -1, damage 2, and you add 1 to hit rolls made for this weapon when it targets units that can fly, subtract 1 against everything else. So it is, as it stands with the name Stormhawk Interceptor, it is really one to go and get other flyers if you have that weapon. Plus the Skyhammer missile launcher also has the same rule. So really you're going to end up with one of those on the craft, so you are probably looking at anti-flyer with this, but that's fine because your ground units don't really give you anti-flyer, so that's not a bad thing. And you've got the Last Talon, which is heavy 2, strength 9, AP -3, D6 damage, brilliant weapon. So it comes with 2 assault cannons, 2 heavy bolters and the Storm Cannon, but you can replace the 2 heavy bolters with the Skyhammer missile launcher or Typhoon missile launcher, and you can replace the Storm Cannon with the Last Talon. So unfortunately you can't have the Storm Talon and the Last Talon, which would be quite nice. But yeah, so you can kit it out for anti-monstrous creature work or potentially for anti-tank or anti-flyer. But flyers are generally weaker, so I'd go for the things that give you more shots. Like the Typhoon, it's only strength 8, AP -2, whereas Last Talon's strength 9, AP -3. But again, it gives you 2 shots, which, you know, you'd probably be looking at firing at a flyer. So the Last Talon gives you 2 points, but it'll be 2 shots, but obviously be more expensive. The Skyhammer is again 1 strength lower, but then you've got 3 shots. The Storm Cannon's strength 7 as well, but 3 shots. The Assault Cannon's worth it. I mean, 6 shots at strength 6. Most flyers are toughness 6 or 7, so even that could be worth it. It has the normal rules: airborne, crash and burn, supersonic, hard to hit, but it does have a couple other cool rules. So it has Interceptor, which is add 1 to hit rolls for this model when targeting units in the shooting phase that can fly. So all of these are on +1 to hit. So when you think that the Storm Cannon and Skyhammer are on +2 to hit, you're on 2s all game basically. Unless you're on 1 or 2 wounds, you're on 2s to hit flyers. So that's nice. And Infernum Halo Launcher, you can reroll save rolls of 1 for this model, which is nice. You know, it won't come in handy too often, but it might just save its bacon in a squeeze. The Interceptor is 85 base. By the time you've added the weapons, I think it's about 175, something like that. But I think it's solidly worth that. The 10 wounds, toughness 7 is going to take a little while to get through, and even if it only fires for sort of 2 turns, the amount of damage you can do in 2 turns is pretty high. So that's fine by me. Actually, I'm going to go through the Storm Talon next. So it's basically the same, but it's toughness 6 with 10 wounds, not toughness 7. So it's a little bit lesser in that sense. You can have a lot of the same weapons, but it can't have the Storm Cannon or the Last Talon. and it does the opposite of the Stormhawk. So you have strafing runs, so you add hit rolls to this model when it targets things that can't fly. They're actually a really good combination. You can have one that targets ground, one that targets the air. So it's a really nice combo in that sense. It's got all the basic weapons. It's got a hover jet though as well, so it can obviously hover, which a lot of the weapons, a lot of the flyers can't. I think it's reasonably cheap as well, so it's 110 points. The Stormhawk's 85. Because the weapons aren't as expensive, you're going to end up probably looking at something like 150, 160. So a little bit cheaper. But like I say, I like them working in concert. Have a Storm Talon and a Stormhawk. Or maybe a Stormhawk and two Storm Talons, because they're a little bit cheaper, and obviously there's more ground targets than there are flying targets. So I think they work nicely. Good addition to the Grey Knights. And I'm glad they gave us flyers, not a vehicle that sits still shooting flyers, just because that isn't very Grey Knight. Grey Knight's all about rapid strikes, so I like the fact they've got flyers rather than like the Hunter and things like that. Finally, you've got the Storm Raven. So this is toughness 7, but it's also got 14 wounds. Can have all the weapons it had before. There's some really good options in there. It has airborne, supersonic, hard to hit. It can hover as well, which is nice. It has power of the Machine Spirit, which is also very nice. It can carry 12 Grey Knights Infantry and 1 Grey Knights Dreadnought, so you can still carry the Dreadnought, which is nice. Obviously, you can give it the Hurricanes, which is a good idea. You know, close range, 12 inches, which you can get into pretty much every turn with the flyer. You're looking at 24 bolt gun shots, which is quite nice. It has the Storm Strike missiles as well. If you haven't come across them, they're brilliant now. They don't run out. You just keep firing them all the time. The heavy one, strength 8, AP -3, damage 3. So they're brilliant. 2 of those every turn. Bam, bam, bam. Is awesome. Some of the best loadouts are still the traditional ones. Last Cannon Multi-Marrow if you're looking for anti-tank. If you're looking for anti-flyer, probably still the Last Cannon, but then maybe the missile launcher instead, the Typhoon. If you want to mow down infantry, which you can do, obviously with the Hurricanes, the only thing is, because you can shoot everything at different targets now, I think I would trust my Storm Bolters to kill the infantry, have the Hurricanes, but just let them shoot infantry while all the anti-tank stuff shooting tanks, because you can't replace the Hurricane Bolters with anything else anyway, so they're going to have to be there. But technically you could go anti-infantry, have Hurricane, twin Assault Cannon, twin Heavy Bolter, and then have the Storm Strikes just firing at vehicles, but you're probably going to go anti-vehicle. The Storm Raven is 172 base, so again about 250, 260 by the time you've tooled it up. But well worth it. We know how survivable they are now. 14 wounds at toughness 7, and they're hard to hit. They're a good transport for a unit. I usually put my strike squad in it because the Interceptors and Dread Knights can all teleport a deep strike. They're the only slow unit, so I tend to put them in the Storm Raven with my Librarian. So that's the end of the army list. So we're going to look at a few extra things. So this is where I was talking about the psychic powers earlier. So the Hammer of Demons. If you have a battle forged army, all Psykers and Grey Knights detachments gain this ability. You can add 1 to Psychic tests to cast and deny, which is brilliant. So they all get +1 to both, which is really effective. You've got so many psychic powers to cast, so many chances to deny. That really comes into effect, believe me. Like I say, after playing a game with them, it really comes into effect. Knights of Titan. If your army is Battleforged, all troop units and Grey Knights detachments gain this ability. So basically it's like the old objective secured. If they're there, unless the other army has a special rule that's similar, you hold the objective no matter how many of the enemy are there, which is really good. And I don't want them to span this rule everywhere, because then otherwise it just becomes, right, make sure you've got objective secured, or we've all got objective secured, so what's the point of having objective secured? But I do like it for the Grey Knights because, one, they're such powerful warriors that 1 or 2 of them against a horde of Gene Stealers, let's say, could win in the fluff, so it kind of makes sense. But also, there's so few of them, it would be a bit tactically inappropriate to say, oh, right, okay, so your biggest squad in your whole army is 5 men and you're playing orcs and you've got to do the normal sit by an objective and outnumber your enemy. You know, it's going to be pretty hard for them, so I like that rule coming in. So we've got Warlord traits. The named characters have got ones from here, so there's no special ones. So number 1 is Demon Slayer. The good thing is, by the way, guys, you can choose these, because otherwise I would be annoyed by this first one. I know it's very fluffy, but basically if your Warlord wounds a demon in the fight phase, your opponent must subtract 1 from any invulnerable saves they make. Cool rule. but only if you're fighting demons. The good thing is, guys, you can roll or pick. So I love that because it's a really fluffy one that you can take if you're playing demons. If you're not, you don't have to. Whereas on the old tables, you had to roll, and if you rolled that, it was just like, what's the point of having this? It's completely irrelevant. So that's cool because, like I say, you can pick. Hammer of Righteousness. Add 1 to wound rolls for your Warlord in the fight phase if he successfully charged this turn. Solid, you should get charges off a decent amount, but yeah, it's the successful charge. It could have just been add 1 to the wound rolls for the Warlord, but it's okay. It's not too bad. Unyielding Anvil. All Grey Knights within 6 inches automatically pass morale tests. Better than it sounds. I know they've got high leadership and they generally will win combats they're involved in. It's just that they'll slowly be grinded down over time. But it is good because obviously you haven't got many models. Like I said, you can't afford to start losing them to morale tests. So auto-passing, not re-rolling, auto-passing is pretty great. First to the fray. You can reroll failed charge rolls for your Warlord and friendly Grey Knight units that are within 6 inches of him at the start of the charge phase. This is awesome. So it sounds a bit, and believe me, the Black Templars have got that, which I'm working on at the moment as well, if you look at my Taylor Gamer series. And I was a bit gutted because I thought, oh, reroll charges. But it works really well with the Grey Knights. So like I said, imagine my formation I'm thinking of, which is 2 Dread Knights and a Dread Knight Grandmaster. They drop down and then you're re-rolling your charges. So all 3 of them have got a chance to charge. They need 9-inch charge, and they're re-rolling. So averagely 1.5 of them ish get in, if you work out the odds. So 1 should get in, and you've got 50% chance of getting another one in on the turn you deep strike, which is awesome. So actually, if you use it right, that's a really cool trait. Nemesis Lord, you can add 1 to the damage characteristic of your Warlord's melee weapons. If your Warlord wields a Relic of Titan that is a melee weapon, choose another Warlord trait or re-roll. So that's really awesome as well. Add 1 to the damage characteristic. So if you've got a Nemesis Steam Hammer, it's d6 plus 1 now. But it also maybe lets you, like I say, take that Warding Stave. Because now the Warding Stave is d3 plus 1 damage, which is pretty awesome. And like I say, you can get that 2-up invulnerable save potentially for your Warlord. So that's pretty good. And then Lawmaster, which is your Warlord knows 1 additional psychic power, which is fine. My Warlord's a Librarian, so I may well go for that. Obviously, when I get the Dread Knight Grandmaster, he will be. But actually, at the moment, it's a Librarian, so 1 extra psychic power is good. It is melee weapons. For a second, I was just looking back, just in case it said all weapons, which case my Dread Knight weapons would be plus 1 damage. Or that'd be horrendous. But it's not. It is only melee weapons, unfortunately. Got 2 pages of stratagems here in the Grey Knight books. There's quite a lot of options here. There's some really good ones. A couple that we used in that game as well, so check it out and you can see them. Like there's one here which is Finest Hour, which is 2 command points. Use the stratagem at the start of your turn, pick a Grey Knight's character and double the range of any aura abilities. That's really nice. That one turn where you want a really good combat phase, you can double his aura, which is cool. You can take Cybolt ammunition, which is quite cool. So it's 2 command points. Use the stratagem before Grey Knight unit shoots. The strength and AP characteristic of any bolt guns, storm bolters, heavy bolters and hurricane bolters that unit fires are improved by 1. So that's great. You come down with your 10-man interceptor unit. You've got 32 storm bolter shots because obviously you've got a couple of heavy weapons in there. And all of a sudden they're strength 5, AP minus 1. All of a sudden those shots are quite nasty. Hurricane bolters, so you could do it on your Storm Raven. Imagine that, a Storm Raven with 24 shots. And now it's they're strength 5, AP minus 1. So there's some cool ones around. A teleportation boost is very important for me. 1 command point, you can make another teleport shunt with an intercept squad even if you've already done it. So that last turn you need to claim an objective or claim a Maelstrom objective and you can just play that and you get 1 extra shunt, which is really cool. There was one more I wanted to pick out. Oh, it's this one. So Heed the Procrastinators, 2 command points. Use the stratagem at the start of your turn, pick a Grey Knight character, add 1 to the invulnerable save until the end of your turn. So what's really cool about that is that obviously you've got your guy with the 4+ invuln, and then you have the Warding Stave, 3+, and then you've got 2 chances to get 2+ because you can cast Sanctuary, or you could use that if you really needed it for that turn, you could use that. Or your Grandmaster on a Dread Knight who can't have a Warding Stave, who has a 4+ invuln, suddenly cast Sanctuary, play that, and he's got a 2-up invulnerable save for the turn. So that turn you come down, the whole army's standing there. So yeah, you're going to do some damage, but you're going to get a whole army piling firepower back at you. All of a sudden you can go, yeah, but he's got a 2-up invuln. So, whatever. So there are some really cool stratagems in there, some really good ones that you can use. Something I wanted to point out in here that I thought was a really cool background. So this is a really cool bit of background that they put in here. So basically, these are, it says it's an approved records text for post-death use by units attached to the Grey Knights, so Imperial Guardsmen and things like that. And so it goes, the courage shown by the men and women of the company was inspirational. They carried out their duty to the Emperor with exemplary determination and skill. In difficult circumstances, they managed to acquit themselves in the manner expected of the regiment. The selflessness and sacrifice demonstrated by the entire company is, and will remain, a shining example of bravery. There were no survivors of the action. I love that so much. I love the fact they've got a pre-printed copy and paste. We killed all the guardsmen, but we can't tell you. So here's a little letter saying that they were really awesome. And obviously it's kind of great because it comes from Space Marines. I know they don't know they're Grey Knights, but it comes from Space Marines. It's a really nice text. So, you know, people are going to be like, oh my goodness, they died so inspirationally. It's so brilliant, you know. And, you know, and it's good they know that. It's good that they think that. But I love the fact that it's brackets, we killed them all. So I love the fact they've got a copy and paste little thing there. I thought that was really cool. So last things to go through, guys, is the Relics of Titan and the Santic Discipline. So we'll go through them now. Okay, so Relics of Titan. So we've got the there is a stratagem like there is in most of the codices, just to say, where you can take more than one relic, but you have to pay command points for it, so that's an option. You've got the Fury of Deimos, which replaces the Stormbolter, and it becomes 30 inches, rapid fire 3, strength 5, AP-1, damage 1, which is pretty nice. 3-shot strength, basically gets the Stormbolter, but you know, you're probably looking at 2s to hit, so it's quite nasty, and actually could be combined with that stratagem we just read. The strength and armor penetration characters for any bolt guns, storm bolters, heavy bolters, and hurricane bolters. I wonder if it counts. No, I don't think it does. It doesn't say anywhere that it is. Otherwise it'd be AP-2 strength 6 and it'd be horrendous, but okay, cool. So that's that. Obviously you don't pay for any of these, just like the other ones. You don't pay for any of these, you just pick one. Replaces your Nemesis Demon Hammer. Becomes ×2 strength, AP-3, but it comes damage 4. You do still subtract 1 from your hit roll, but obviously that damage 4 is nice. Just in I notes, instead of D6 you can roll worse, but just that constant 4. When you've got 5 attacks, you're hitting on 2s, you're probably wounding most people on 2s. The chances of you hitting and wounding are really good, so the chance of just getting 4, 8, 12, 16 damage is quite high. Banner of Refining Flame. Paladin Ancient or Brotherhood Ancient only. The Banner of the Refining Flame is a sacred banner. A model equipped with this banner loses the rights of banishment ability. Instead, when the bearer manifests the Smite psychic power, it only has a range of 6 inches but inflicts D6 more wounds instead of D3. So that's quite nice. You could potentially put that in the unit. Start doing D6 more wounds for Smite. It won't come off all the time, but there will be those games where, you know, you'll cast it 2 turns in a row on a Bloodthirster and you'll go 4, 6, you know, and do 10 wounds to it, and it will be pretty horrendous. So potentially worth it, and again, potentially worth it if you're building an idea around that Crow and the Purifiers, because potentially if you get Brotherhood Ancient and put him in with Crow and the Purifiers, you've got 3d6 smite powers. All of them have got to be within 3-6 inches, but again, that turn you get out the vehicle, right next to someone ready to charge, you shoot them, and then you can do 3d6 smite damage from one unit with Crow, the Purifiers, and this guy. So on its own, not great, but I think if you multiply it like that, that can be pretty horrendous. Soulglaive, so Nemesis Force Halberd is what it replaces. +1 strength, AP-3, D3 damage, and you roll your failed hit and wound rolls made for this weapon. I think that's really nice, because that still makes them strength 5, there's still AP-3, which is power up, and D3 damage isn't insane, but it's decent. But the fact you're rerolling hit and wounds just makes you so reliable. Like I say, you're hitting on 2s, you're winning most things on 4s or 3s, makes you nice and reliable, so I think that's quite nice. Yeah, it's pretty good. Again, especially if you manage to combine that somehow to get more attacks, like say through the Brotherhood banners. So your Lord's got 6 or 7 attacks, because the one weakness is that D3 damage isn't insane. It's good, but it's not brilliant. But when you've got 6 or 7 attacks, rerolling hits and wounds, who cares how much damage you're doing? You could be doing 1 damage and you'd still be pretty good. The Domina Liber Demonica. All enemy demon units must subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic while they're in 6 inches of the bearer. I don't mind that. Again, like the Warlord traits, throwing in 1 demon-based one is cool, it's fluffy, and you should only take it if you're against demons. And then subtracting 1 with their leadership is quite nice. Like I say, those morale tests are going to start to hurt. And the Cuirass of Sacrifice, infantry model only. Roll a d6 each time the bearer loses a wound. On a 5+ it's ignored. So again, really good for someone who's got 6 wounds, you know, like a Grand Master. And on a 5+, basically he's got 5+ feel no pain, on top of a 2+ save and a 4+ invulnerable, which can be boosted up to a 2+ invulnerable technically, etc. Having that then on top of that is pretty brilliant. So that's pretty good. So the relics are really nice actually. I really like the relics. They're pretty good. So see some really good combinations coming out of that. Okay, and then finally we're on to the Santic discipline, so the psychic powers. So the first one we have is Purge Soul. Can you choose? I think you can, can't you? If I remember rightly, I think you can choose your psychic powers. So Purge Soul. Purge Soul has a warp charge value of 5. If manifested, pick a visible enemy unit within 12 inches of the Psyker. Both players roll a dice and add their respective leaderships. If the target total is equal or higher, nothing happens. If your total is higher, they suffer that many more wounds. So it's not a bad little power to have. It only casts on 5. And obviously if you've got lower leadership enemies, that could work out really well. You know, if you're 2 or 3 ahead of them at the start on the dice roll, you could really do some damage. But also, you know, you just have to get lucky really a little bit. You know, you could be the same leadership. If you roll 6 and they roll 1, that's 5 more wounds. You know, that could kill a character. So it's a little unpredictable, but it could be really good, potentially. Yeah, you know, you got something like Orc Knobs in Mega Armor, where they probably leadership 7. If you're leadership 9, you roll a 5, they roll a 3. You know, it's 4 mortal wounds. And that's not crazy rolling. I know I'm giving myself a little bit of an advantage there, but not massive. I could say 6 to 1. But you're still doing 4 mortal wounds, so it's not too bad. Gate of Infinity, this is one I really like, and really good if you haven't got interceptor squads and things like that. So it's warp charge values of 6. If manifested, pick a friendly Grey Knight unit within 12 inches of the Psyker. Remove that unit from the battlefield and immediately set up anywhere that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So, like I say, that strike squad or purifiers or whatever you haven't got, that don't have fast moving, don't have transport, don't have a jump pack, etc., can actually move quite quick with that. And again, considering you can choose these powers, you can make sure you have that every game, so you can rely on that as a tactic. You don't have to think, oh, but will I roll it or anything like that. You can just pick that. Okay, Hammer Hand. So Hammer Hand's a lot better as well. So usually +1 strength in combat. It's cast on a 6, but now pick a friendly unit within 12 inches of the Psychic, add 1 to any wound rolls you make in for that unit's melee weapons until the start of their Psychic phase. So it is only melee, but add 1 to any wound is far better than +1 strength, because obviously +1 strengths could be irrelevant. You could still be winning on 6s, whereas add 1 to any wound roll, even if you're winning on 6s, you're actually winning on 5s, you're winning on 5s, you're actually winning on 4s, and it makes more likely abilities will happen. So if you've got an ability of this happens on a 6, it now happens on a 5 or 6. So Hammer Hand's pretty swanky. Sanctuary is obviously fantastic, a power you'll see every Grey Knight player take all the time. So it's a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, pick a friendly Grey Knight unit within 12 inches. They gain a 5% vulnerable save, which is cool anyway, but if you've already got one, you just add 1 to it. So like I said, you can get Grandmasters and Dread Knights on 2+ invulnerables. To be fair, considering you are using, in that case, the stratagem for that, you can't do that often, which is good, because obviously it would be a bit ridiculous. But you can also get normal heroes on like a 3+ invulnerable, things like that. So it's really good, Sanctuary. Astral Aim, so this is the thing that really, in my opinion, should be in the Purgation Squad rules, but we do get it's a Psychic power, so you could cast it on them, so, you know, you can do it. Warp charge of 5, if manifested, picking it within 18 inches, the unit can target enemy units it can't see, and no one gains the bonus of cover from them. So it is a really good power, brilliant power, it's brilliant to have it. I just feel a bit sorry for the Purgation Squad that they haven't got it anymore. And the final one, which is a pretty brutal power, maybe the most destructive power I've seen so far. That's why it has a warp charge value of 8. Remember, you're getting +1, so you're actually, it's warp charge value 7, which is really good. It also means things like Purge Soul are actually Warp Charge 4, you know. If manifested, a vortex opens above the nearest visible enemy model within 12 inches of the Psyker. So it's got 12 inch range, which is decent. That model's unit and every other unit within 3 inches of that model suffers D3 mortal wounds. The number of wounds inflicted is increased to D6 if you manifest on a 12 plus, which again actually is a 6 and a 5, not just 2 6s, because again you get +1 to your casting. So you're actually looking for double 6 or 6 5 or 5 and 6, and you're doing D6 mortal wounds. But let's just concentrate on that's obviously not going to happen too often. Concentrating on just the D3 mortal wounds. Pretty great, you know, that unit plus any units within 3 inches. So again, just have one Psyker have this, don't have it across your army because you're not going to use it that often. But you know, everyone's bunching now in the new edition because of auras. Also, you've got a reason to be happy they're doing that, but you also have a reason to stop them doing that. And maybe they'll just spread out that little bit more so the auras won't quite reach as many units once you've shown them the destructive power of that. Because like I say, you've got 50% chance of casting it, so it should go off a decent amount of times. And you know, there could be 3 or 4 units taking D3 more wounds, which is pretty nasty. So that's it, guys. That's the end of the Grey Knights Codex review. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the Grey Knight Codex, the rules, the combos we've been through, the different units. How would you build an army? What do you think of the standouts? What do you think of the kind of letdowns? What do you think of just the quality of the Codex? I think it looks brilliant. Are you collecting Grey Knight army? What's in yours? Obviously, if you are a Grey Knight fan or any fan of any army, pop over to the channel and have a look at the battle report that's already out, and then the next one which will have Grey Knights in it, so you'll be able to see the new Codex in action. My own personal views, I think it's really well written, really well displayed, although you'd expect that from Games Workshop now. They are very good at that kind of thing. What I will say about the rules, I think most of it's really good. I think the Santic Discipline's very good, and no real weakness there. I think the relics are really good. I think the stratagems, some of them are just merged so nicely with the army. I think some of the new units are really cool. Grandmaster Dread Knights, I think chaplains are cool. The only real letdown, the new flyers. You got a lot more flexibility with the Grey Knights now. I think the only probably letdown for me is the Purgation Squad. Like I say, just not having Astral Aim themselves, so they're basically just a Devastator squad, but a quite expensive one. Makes me not too interested in them. But apart from that, I think everything looks really promising, and some of the units look like they could be really destructive. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the Grey Knight Codex. Let me know about what you think about the way the review's done as well. Do you want me to go through every unit like I've done there, or would you prefer a slightly briefer one that takes about half the time, where I just highlight the best and worst units in each section? Is that something you prefer to watch, or are you happy with the longer Codex review format? I've already had some great feedback from people, so please, the people who've already done it, thank you very much. Please keep commenting, and everyone who hasn't, just whack a quick comment on there, just saying, you know, I think it should be the long version, or I think it should be the short version. I'm just about to do the Chaos Space Marine Codex review. I'm going to do that in the short version, so if you want to see that live, just watch that video and you can see what it's like. And please comment, like and subscribe, keep the channel going, let me know you're enjoying it, and I will see you all in the next video, which should be the Chaos Space Marine Codex review or another battle report. Either way, everyone's happy. So I will see you then.